Get to know each of the 12 mayoral candidates with KKTV 11 News Know Before You Vote with this in-depth interview featuring Darryl Glenn.
The first question I want to ask is, what do you think the mayor's primary role is?
I believe, and it's extremely important, I'm going to hold myself to the same standard. The mayor needs to be the mayor for everyone, whether you're a single mom or a CEO. The mayor needs to be that representative for the city so that people are treated with dignity and respect. But I want to make sure that the city has the smallest footprint on your life, and that's going to be my primary job.
What do you think of Mayor John Souther's performance, and if elected, would you keep it in the same direction or change course?
Well, I applaud anybody that steps up during this time to represent, the city or county or whatever office they're in. But I am going to be taking a change of course. I believe we're entering into pretty historic times. There are tough times ahead. I'm very optimistic about the future. But the number one priority for me is we've got to fix our crime problem. My goal is to make sure that Colorado Springs is the safest city in the nation. So my focus is going to be on that.
How would you propose to stretch taxpayer dollars and still achieve your goals as mayor?
Again, with my goal of being, making sure that we address our crime problem, I'm going to look at every single program because I think that our city needs to become more lean and efficient. So I'm going to evaluate every program from that lens and take a look at, are we performing functions that are best served in the private sector? And if we are, I'm going to look at eliminating or reducing those programs and reallocating those dollars and putting those into core services. I am not in favor of raising taxes in this economic climate.
How can the mayor have an impact on homelessness in the region?
This is a very important issue because I believe it's a community issue, not just a law enforcement issue. So I support making sure that from looking at the city's role, and the city's role is really from when you're looking at the intake with regard to issues that are occurring from a public safety standpoint, whether you're responding to situations within homeless camps, because there's a lot of violence that are out there, or medical emergencies. We need to make sure that we have the ability to be that first responder intake. But what I want to do is kind of change our paradigm. I want to make sure that we are working closer with the private sector, faith-based organizations, other nonprofits, other community private sector functions. And I want to work with them on using their resources to be able to develop plans for housing, plans for financial assistance. We want to work within their networks because I believe that when we share that responsibility as a community, we're in a better position to do that. So I want to change the city's role where we're doing more of the intake, but we already have pre-existing relationships with people that already have housing scenarios and places for people to be able to live, already have financial assistance set up. And I think that that's going to be the focus.
What can the next elected mayor do to help with the affordable housing crisis?
This is an issue where, I believe that we need to take a step back because I don't believe it's the government's job to put its hand on the scale to influence the housing market. I think that we first need to look at the government's role is to make sure that when you're looking at housing, that any housing that we have in our community, that it's safe and reliable, that people can count on it when it comes to those particular functions. But I think we need to get out of the way. I think that we need to make sure that we're looking at our zoning and making sure as a general city policy that we're encouraging people to maximize the use of their property. And I think that's where we have had problems. And I do not believe that we should be using government funds to try to artificially stimulate the housing market. That is not, in my opinion, the proper role of government.
How should Colorado Springs handle city growth given the water constraints in the West?
I think that our water supply is absolutely something that needs to be considered. So when you're looking at as we're growing, I think that's a problem. I've spent a lot of time talking to people, and people are very concerned that we're growing at a rate that's not sustainable. One, from a water supply standpoint, and then when you're even looking at our core services, looking at police response times, looking at our water supply, we need to make sure that we have a policy in place that takes that into consideration. So I do support taking a look at some sort of formula to be able to determine that we have adequate water in place to be able to not only provide for the ratepayers that have built our water supply system, but that as we grow, that we're making those smart decisions. So water is going to be extremely important to be able to make sure that we have enough supply, because when you're looking at what's going on in Colorado River Basin, we are very concerned about our growth and our water supply going in the future. So when you factor that in, along with our wildfire risk, we have to do a better job planning to make sure that we have enough resources in place. On top of that, when you're looking at our overall core services, especially when it comes to public safety, we are stretched well beyond what we can absolutely sustain right now. So increasing more growth and annexations into our city, in my opinion, is not responsible.
Finally, Darryl, why should voters cast their ballot for you?
I love this. My wife and I, we've been reminiscing, back in the 70s and 80s, we grew up here. And I think that Colorado Springs is a special place. But when you actually get out and talk to people, people are frustrated in the fact that they believe that we've kind of lost our luster, that we're growing at a rate that's not sustainable, that crime is becoming a major issue. And I have deep roots in this community, and I want to make sure people understand that I am 100% committed to making sure that Colorado Springs is the safest city in the nation. I joke that, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel, and I trained to deploy at 24 hours notice. Well, it's time to get ready. And it's time for people to absolutely understand that we have a beautiful city, but we have to be serious about addressing our crime problem. So I need people to believe that we can win, believe that we can do this, and believe that we can absolutely make sure that Colorado Springs is the safest city in the nation. And when we do that, everything else is going to take care of itself.
Darryl Glenn, candidate for mayor of Colorado Springs, we want to thank you again for joining us at our 11 Breaking News Center, and we wish you all the best this upcoming election season.
All right, go to DarrylGlennForColorado.com. Let's win this.